Hello, all you lovely people. Thank you for your patience about this video tarot forecast. It has been quite the week. I'm assuming that I'm not the only one, and there may be things going on for you as well. I feel like the energy is a little bit ragged at the moment in the collective, and that's probably because of a lot of the events that have been going on in the past couple of weeks, particularly the ones that have hit the news headlines, and also the fact that we in England, well, in the UK, are going to the polls today to vote. I have just come back from casting my own vote, so there is that to bear in mind in terms of what might be sort of buffeting you and influencing you, whether you can feel it sort of around you in a way that's quite palpable, or whether it's something that you can feel in other people that you're interacting with, or whether it is something that is going on perhaps even behind the scenes to you and may just be sort of coming forward every now and again in your consciousness. Also, apologies for the throat. I'm feeling I've got a very tickly throat today, so excuse me if I have to break every now and again, either to cough or to take a sip of my coffee here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak to you a little bit about just the foundation or the intention of this reading. For those of you who are new, you may not know this, but it's always worth saying anyway. So it's a 3-card reading. I tend to love my 3-card readings, as you know. I'm using my Röhrig deck because that's the one that I feel drawn to use for these readings as well as for the tarot cast. And when I was shuffling and setting the intentions that I do for the reading, what I noticed was that there was a card that fell out or was actually left behind when I was shuffling. So I have kept that on the table in front of me, and that is going to be the central card. That's the one at the center. I have no idea what it is yet, and I've yet to draw the other 2 cards, but I'm going to do that once I've explained the 3 cards. The card on the left is foundational in some way to the reading and also to your experience and how that parallels with the reading. So it's what you are coming in with, whether that's something that is an undercurrent in your entire life, a theme that you often encounter, or something that's just happened. It's what you're bringing in. And then the card at the center, which is the one that I've already drawn, is the current weather. So very much along the kind of lines, though it might be different from that ragged energy that I'm talking about, that ragged kind of feeling in the collective, that's really also a kind of descriptor of current weather. So whatever the card is going to be, whether it confirms that or whether it points us in a new direction, it is very much what is happening now, both inside you and outside, in the people around you, in the world around you. And then finally, the card on the right is the tool that you get given with the reading. It is a tool that is extended to you from your unconscious, or from that aspect of soul that knows the best way to work with whatever is going on, combined with the foundation that you bring in, to make the most of what's going on, or in some way to mitigate what's going on. It's your surfboard. It hands you a surfboard when you are in the rolling waves of your life. And we will see just how high those waves are, or how calm they are, when we look at the card at the center. But first, the card on the left. So here is what you're coming in with. This is what is foundational, and that is the 9 of Swords. So the 9 of Swords, I know this card depicts it particularly graphically, but it also is very accurate in as much as I see the 9 of Swords to be. The 9 of Swords is self-inflicted pain, and when I mean self-inflicted, I'm not going to go down the road of saying this is all your fault. That's not it at all. What I'm talking about is that the pain is originating. It might be sparked off in some kind of external factor. It might be an experience that's happened. But actually the response, the pain response, is coming from inside. So there is something here that is a responsive sense of pain, and that pain may be physical. It may also be psychological and emotional. And given the fact that these are swords cards, they deal with the mind, the intellect, there is definitely going to be a psychological component to it. Um, but it is also where the pain is exacerbated, made worse, when it's turned inwards. So it's not only an initiating force that brings this experience of pain into your life, but it's almost as if you take the baton of pain and you run with it in some way. So it can be self-reproach, it can be shame, it can be guilt, it can be that inner voice, which we often refer to in psychology as the superego, which is the mediating, authoritative voice that is turned in on oneself. Often it is actually based on voices that we heard as children. So again, it's taking that baton and running with it. If we were subjected to some form of cruelty, whether it was verbal abuse, whether it was emotional abuse, whether it was neglect, whether it was the absence of something happening, very often as adults, what happens is that we don't need to have that figure or that particular experience active in our lives. We internalize it, and we have then, in essence, taken the baton and run with it. We replay it and we replicate it. So it's not just a replaying of a memory, but we replicate it throughout our lives over and over again. Ideas of not being enough, or of being too much, or of things always going wrong, or you're always messing up. These are the things that we tell ourselves. And when we draw the Nine of Swords, one of the things to bear in mind is also what's actually really going on here. And that's based on the card that comes before the Nine of Swords in the sword suit, which is the Eight of Swords, and which is a prison of our own making. It's a prison, a conceptual prison, a prison of understanding, a prison of a way of seeing things, which is very much based on this idea of going back and finding the originating force or the originator of this particular feeling. But it also means that that there is something, that we have a lot more power than we think. It may be that we just need to ride the Nine of Swords out. We may need to ride it out in terms of then just shifting through to the surrender to the pain, which then turns into the Ten of Swords, which is the bottoming out of something. It's all well and good to say, well, I am responsible for my own emotional and psychological experience, but saying that and actually being able to do something about it are two very different things. And what I don't want to happen is to have you then beat yourself up again about the fact that you can't do much about what it is that's going on inside you or around you, or both. So it's simply perhaps to hold an awareness of what might be possible, what might possibly be happening, and then that awareness in and of itself can sometimes bring in a little bit of wiggle room between you and the experience, not to change it, but in the awareness there is that change. Oh my goodness, things are shit at the moment. I'm feeling shit, or there's something in my life that's not working out the way that I want it to, and I'm feeling like this about it. And then just noticing how you're feeling can sometimes be enough. Sometimes just simply having the card reflected to us can be enough, just to know, at the very least, but also entirely significantly, that we are not alone, that something holds an awareness of what it is that we are going through. So that's foundational. That's what you're bringing in. It's not what's happening now, it's what has happened. But in some way it's going to influence how it's going to connect, like two weather fronts that come in and then create a third force. So this is the one that is coming in, and it is going to somehow connect with the current weather pattern. And this is the current weather pattern that's coming in. A card that has appeared in this week's tarot cast, the Prince of Discs. Now let's watch these two together. Okay. See how the Prince of Discs is looking at the Nine of Swords. Now, what I find interesting here is that it's not so much that the Prince of Discs is being affected by the Nine of Swords. I think there's a subtle difference in what's going on here. The Nine of Swords is something old. Whether it's something very old or just recently happened, it is just, hang on, let me just rearrange these. It's foundational. It is not something that you're unfamiliar with. So, so if you're looking for the Nine of Swords, then look for something that's familiar. If it's an event that's happened, or something, a familiar pattern. But what I notice here is that the Prince of Discs. Did I say swords earlier? I'm not sure. If I did, apologies. If not, just ignore me. I obviously haven't had enough coffee. The Prince of Discs does not seem to be affected by it in the way that the figure in the Nine of Swords is affected by the experience. He is looking in a different way at the Nine of Swords. Now, the Prince of Discs is an earth-based court card. He's the airy aspect of earth. So he has the intellect to be able to analyze something, but he's also incredibly grounded in the earth. So what he is able to do here is to bring a sense of analysis and objectivity to what's going on with the Nine of Swords. So what you are getting in the current weather is the ability to look objectively. It's that wiggle room that I was talking about, except this wiggle room is not, it's not really wiggle room. The Prince of Discs is quite still. He's quite grounded. He's solid. He's stable. He's rational. He may take a little bit longer to do things than some of the other court cards, but that doesn't mean that, in fact, because he's methodical, he gets it done, and he probably gets it done correctly in a way that some of the other courts don't, the younger court cards. And so in this moment, what you have is the ability right now to step back and look at something that's been going on in your life with new eyes. To look with the eyes of intuition, which is really the eyes of the soul. So to look with a sense of wisdom and detachment about something, and then possibly to be able to, in that moment, resituate it, or reposition it, or reposition yourself in relation to it. And in some way that transforms the experience of the Nine of Swords. So we have both of these things happening right now. And what we're going to do is look at a further tool that you have. So what we're looking at now is very possibly what the Prince of Discs can also bring into the equation, or what he is currently bringing into the equation, or what you are able to apply with the ability that you now have, with the environment supporting you to be objective. You can bring this one thing in that is going to help. So here is your tool, the Hermit. Again, we have a minor arcana card, we have a court card, and we have a major arcana. The Hermit works very beautifully with the Prince of Discs. The Hermit is that time of introspection. It's the time of being alone. I think a lot of people I think that there is sometimes a bit of a kickback reaction to the Hermit, because there's this idea that, oh my goodness, I have to close myself off from the world. I have to be a hermit in essence. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be separated from others. And I think that that's to misinterpret the emphasis of the Hermit. The Hermit is not so much about being separated from others as by being separate enough to connect with yourself. So in other words, it's the quiet time, it's the downtime to be able to get still enough to listen to soul, to the voice of soul, to what is being given to you, to be able to sit with whatever it is that is on the surface, whether it's that experience in the Nine of Swords, and whether it is the ability to look at that experience differently. The Hermit endures, and in so enduring transforms, because he listens within. And sometimes when listening within, we have to go through the interference of what's around that voice, so that we can then come to the wisdom of our own ability and our own power to transform our circumstances, rather than reaching out to anyone else. So the Hermit, again, is not necessarily a literal hermit, but it's understanding that you have all of the resources inside you to be able to deal with this. So in essence, you are a hermit. There is no need to extend an arm to ask for somebody to help you with this particular thing. I'm not saying don't ask for help at all, but with this particular thing, this emotional, psychological thing that's going on, you have everything that you need. And in fact, you need to do this by yourself because nobody else can do it for you. The hermit reaches the understanding that after a period of extroversion, which comes from the strength in my deck, then there is a period of introversion in order to integrate what it is that has come up as a result of some kind of experience out in the world. And so I'm just going to put these two together. As you can see, they're really quite similar in terms of the colouring. Definitely when you contrast the Nine of Swords, which is, you know, the blood reds and the mauves and the very sharp, you know, the sharpness of the swords, the sharpness of the barbed wire, the tears. And then we come to this. And what I love about this is that you almost see an overlay of the Hermit and the Prince of Discs. Their heads are facing sort of in the same direction, but it's almost as if the Prince of Discs is the human aspect, the aspect that we can become aware of. And behind him is the Hermit, who is doing he is guiding in a deeper way. So the Prince of Discs is able to do the conscious analysis of what's going on in a grounded way, but he's also connected to swords because he is airy. He's the airy aspect of Earth, as I said. So it's our conscious awareness of what we bring in, and it's our conscious awareness of what it is that is facilitating our being able to deal with the Nine of Swords. But behind that is a deeper archetype, which is the archetype of the Hermit. And so these two things work very well together. The Hermit allows an even greater sense of spaciousness around what's going on, and a broader sense of vision, and a deeper sense of understanding, even though we might not, when we're at the Prince of Discs, really fully understand the circumstances. There is an aspect of us at play behind the scenes through the Hermit, as the Hermit moves through us, that has the bigger picture. And we may not necessarily need to know about that bigger picture, but the bigger picture is part of what is going to be coming through. And we'll know enough when we need to know it. So these are the three cards for this month. I'd be very interested in your feedback to see if you have had any experience of any of these. Obviously, some are going to be more in your awareness than others, and in fact, they are going to be increasingly out of awareness as we move through the readings. So you may be more aware of the Nine of Swords, becoming aware of the Prince of Discs, and then perhaps possibly aware of a sensation that you can't quite put your finger on of the Hermit, or it may be that the Hermit becomes something that is very active in your life, which is then that ability to detach from what others are saying, from detaching from the world and what it might be telling you, in order that the Prince of Discs can really come through you as an aspect of your personality and start being able to see the Nine of Swords differently. I hope that is everything that you need to know from the three cards. And if there's anything else, then ask away, ask questions. I will post this video now and look out for your comments. But otherwise, have a very good month, and I will see you in July. Take care.